We are doing this because we are building Avalanche in public. We view ourselves as next-gen VCs that want to be at the center of the vertical ecosystems of learn, earn, and own. And we are eating our own dog food. We are showing people what we're thinking. We're interacting with them on a almost real-time basis. And this allows us to scale ourselves beyond one-on-one conversations.
Where are you taking notes?
I take notes on Apple Notes.
That's where your notes are for this.
Yeah, that's where my notes always are.
Do you use their new blinking function?
No.
What do you just, it's like a regular note.
Yeah.
Just type it.
Yeah. And then I have like my list of things. It's probably good to blur it out, where I usually physically write like, what are the things I need to do today?
That's what my note cards are for. This is real knowledge management.
I think task management.
Well, I think knowledge management would say that's a subcategory of knowledge management, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess I think of knowledge management as something that I want to know beyond the day. So I'm not so concerned about what my to-do list for today is in a week, as long as there aren't things that are just lingering.
So you got your to-do list and your knowledge management. Is how you think about it?
Yeah, I don't think my knowledge management is very optimized. I think one of the hard things with knowledge management is being like, what do you want to remember versus what is just noise that is irrelevant?
I was interested that you wanted to talk about knowledge management.
Yeah, I sent that Substack that mentioned knowledge management as one of the 2023 enterprise software trends, and had a couple of companies. And we looked at a couple of companies that were pitching knowledge management solutions. And usually this begins to hit like onboarding and offboarding. And then at Delivery Associates, we had a mantra called no knowledge lost. So there was like we had a head of knowledge who was just trying to ensure that we were always learning from our projects and we're able to feed those learnings into the next projects. And I don't think that we were very effective at doing that. And I don't think the tech we used was very effective. And it's interesting to see people begin to try and tackle that. And there's that company that we're quite interested in, and both power users of, that make this top of mind.
Yeah. Well, that one is definitely a individual tool for thought or knowledge management. Interesting to me because I've been a Roam power user since they became popular like 3 years ago, and have watched all these companies become very popular in a small subset of Twitter. I'm a small angel investor in a number of them, and I still get outbound knowledge management pitches. And I'm surprised that on the one hand, if this trend is kind of played out, like Apple Notes has gotten hip to some of the cool things that Roam and some of these other things are doing. But like, if we believe that this is just the beginning of the digital era, and there's just going to be more and more information, and you're going to have this problem of what information is valuable and signal versus noise, and how to make it actionable, you're going to see more and more companies coming into the space.
Well, it's interesting how one of the features of that tool that you and I have both been using that I like is I actually, every time I go there, I check out what you're reading. And I'm like, and then I probably
freak you out.
No, I think it's like, it's like, oh, cool, I should read this article too. Like, it's actually like probably a better reading list. And I've seen, it's funny, I have some friends who actually started a company. Now, this was like 8 years ago, that was like basically where people would post their reading lists, and then you could see, you could follow people and then read what they're reading.
I really like that company, and I really like the primitive of the highlight or of the clip, because it's valuable information. Someone clipped it, so at least to them and potentially to other people. And I think they're building a very interesting interest and knowledge network there.
Yeah, you could think about even for us, if we were
Yeah.
reviewing companies' documents, it'd be a much better way for us to collaborate where it'd be like, oh, you reviewed this company and these documents. Oh, I'm going to click into those documents and highlight some stuff and make some comments. And then you could more naturally get to a decision versus reading through them all, emailing or texting your thoughts, having it spread out through all these things.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, did you see that there was an article this week in Every about how AI and LLMs are going to make tools for thought and this like second brain framework irrelevant? Did you see that one?
I think I did, but I'm not a subscriber. And I think it was behind a paywall.
Okay, well, I'm not a subscriber either, but I thought I got the gist of it. Basically, I should say was in one of the first cohorts of actually the course called Building a Second Brain. And he came out with a book and it's very good. And it's just it's a good framework for basically personal knowledge management, personal project management. And there was this funny meme with the bell curve where it's like in the middle, people are doing their second brain in Rome and Obsidian and like Zapier to do if that then. And on either end, it's I use Apple Notes.
I felt very validated by that meme.
I think the premise of what this guy was saying in this article from Every was you don't need to organize your notes anymore. The computer is just going to do a better job of knowing what needs to be linked and what's important, and it's going to surface it at the right time. I think at the end of the day, though, like you really need to have sovereignty over your own process, which is what you said at the beginning. It's like I write down my to-do list and I structure for whatever audience the knowledge that I want to retain over months and quarters and years.
Yeah.
So should we have the meta conversation? I think there's an interesting topic around the meta of this podcast and the skills aspect of it.
Yeah. Let's do it. We could actually talk about this feedback that we're getting.
I mean, the best feedback on here is to do that 15-second intro clip and to name it something different. Yeah, I'm curious for what your thoughts are. Like, what?
We are doing this because we are building Avalanche in public. We view ourselves as next-gen VCs that want to be at the center of the vertical ecosystems of learn, earn, and own. And we are eating our own dog food. We are showing people what we're thinking. We're interacting with them on a almost real-time basis. And this allows us to scale ourselves beyond one-on-one conversations.
We're building in public and we're learning in public. Hopefully you can see it getting better week to week.
Have you watched a video about how to use Descript?
Well, they have this great onboarding module where you help edit this little video that they start you with, and they walk you through how to do it live. It's effectively a mini project where they show you how to use all the tips and tricks inside of their software, which is pretty robust.
I think you'll do another one.
I've been looking for a course. It's like the one area where they could do a little bit better to help me upskill to a power user on Descript. I would take like one of those videos a day, honestly.
I wonder if someone's done that on YouTube.
I looked, there's not a whole lot. And also a lot of the Descripts specifically, they had a bunch of content like a year or two ago, and they just did this whole total massive upgrade where you almost don't even need a video. It's just very intuitive. So hats off to them.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the goal, right? You don't need to upskill people too much.
Right. No directions, just guide the user softly. What's best in class ed tech? Is there a good answer to this? First, you need to define which area of ed tech you're talking about. Let's just start with K-12 schools.
Well, there's two types of ed tech in my mind. There's the learning content and curriculum products, and then there's the enterprise SaaS solution products. And I think for both of them, best in class has to be that they've defined what outcome they want to help achieve, and they achieve it seamlessly with limited friction and using technology that looks like it is consumer grade UX UI.
Right. I think that last part's really important, the consumer grade or just high quality UX UI. one thing you have to do is think about implementation. How does it fit into the hands of the teacher, in the hands of the student, into the flow of the school day or school year? So yeah, just thinking about the framework to tackle this question is.
Yeah.
Okay, so more to come on that then.
More to come on that. And I think people are really innovating in this space and in like learning and development at corporates. So across the
Well, I
spectrum.
think it's kind of interesting. Maybe one row on the rubric is integrating insights from other fields, which might include what you said, like best in class consumer grade UX, certainly insights from learning science, brain science, but also used to be that innovation was exported from K-12. A lot of the innovation around competency-based education and learning outcomes came out of K-12. And now I think the vanguard for innovation might be things like lifelong learning with Duolingo, some corporate learning stuff. And how is a different area of ed tech bringing in those insights that are being proved out in different parts of the market?
Here's one from Bree Kimmel that I thought was interesting. She's like, prediction: dual income tech couples affected by layoffs will choose to shoot their shot at starting a small business. What they'll discover is Shopify, Gusto, and most SBM tooling is now 10 years old and ripe for disruption. And as like, this kind of fits our Arm the Rebels thesis of as an entrepreneur, or people like want to be entrepreneurs. We're seeing the increase of the origination of new businesses in the last 2 years, and that there is a lot of room for startups that are helping people be micro businesses or solo entrepreneurs.
Do you think that what the scenario she talks about is it like a new profile of entrepreneur, or is she just tapping into the current thing?
I don't know. I kind of feel like if I was laid off from Google, I'm not sure I would shoot my shot to start a small, like, I feel like if you're going to start an e-commerce business or a local services business, you would start doing that while you were at Google or while you were in your real job. You wouldn't like wait until you were laid off to do it, right? Because there's so many things that don't require you to be full-time.
Yeah, but the being laid off is a nudge, whether you wanted it or not. I guess I'm wondering if, like, the Shopify experience isn't great, but what do you build? You build another Shopify, or you build something that makes Shopify easier to use?
What I think she's saying is that, I mean, so they're like just entrepreneurs that are just going to go and start business, like small businesses on these platforms.
Right.
But I guess she's saying the opportunity is that, yeah, you could have like a better.
They're going to disrupt Shopify, or so someone's going to disrupt Shopify. It's at the stage now where it's disruptible.
I guess that's what she's saying.
That's kind of an interesting observation about technology in general. It's like came out of nowhere, innovated, forced to be awesome, is awesome, at scale. And eventually, once you get big enough, you become a target for disruption.
And you have a lot of tech debt. You have a business model that you've told to Wall Street, and everything you do has to have a big magnitude now in order to move your bottom line, your numbers, and fulfill your public investors. So you can't really disrupt yourself.
Right. It's kind of like a mood shift from a couple of years ago when it was like, wow, these big tech companies have won the internet. The returns to scale are so incredible that like any innovation is just going to get gobbled up at a fraction of what it could become. And now that doesn't feel so inevitable. Now it feels like the race is back on with Series A and Series B companies. But then it's like, oh, Microsoft's buying OpenAI, Google has DeepMind. I'm sure Amazon has something. I'm sure Facebook has their thing.
But I was reminded on Twitter this week that OpenAI actually started as a nonprofit.
Right.
And so now it's definitely not a nonprofit.
So what's going
on here? Whether this news that Microsoft might be investing some sort of weird structured deal with Microsoft, it makes one pause, right? It's not clean. You're like, I wonder what's going on. Maybe that's just like a weird leak and rumor, but
Yeah, there's been a lot of reporting on it, and it's all behind a paywall, and I'm reading Twitter threads about people who read the article, and so it's all conjecture at this point. But yeah, it definitely was started as a nonprofit. It's definitely raising capital like it's a super rocket ship for profit. And it sounds like Microsoft wants to squeeze all the capitalism out of this.
Yeah. I think that one of the things it brings up is what is truly a public good. Even the launch of OpenAI, they did it in a way that made it seem like it could be a public good or it was doing, but you really have no visibility, no transparency, no governance over it.
Well, Ben Thompson, do you read him at all?
I am not a subscriber. Are you a subscriber?
I'm not a subscriber, but I'm always about to be a subscriber. But then he has some incredible post that's public and free. And so I get my fill. But I feel like I should subscribe. But he wrote something called AI and the Big Five.
Let's see.
Your point about what is a public good. This piece, which was really good, talks about this idea of smart companies try to commoditize their products' complements, which basically means that they try to make things that make their stuff more valuable free, which is why a lot of the big tech companies continue to invest so much in open source software that makes their stuff run, but makes the overall internet run. And I think you can see something like this happening with AI, where this is just going to get compressed down so much. And it's also especially true with the stable diffusion model, which is like a relatively small model and can run on a mobile device. So that's going to become open. It's going to become more compressed, more integrated. And it just seemed like that's going to be a trend line on AI.
Yeah. I had a unique learning experience this week. I did an interview in VR.
Oh, interesting.
Do you have an Oculus?
I do not.
Yeah, it was interesting. We met in the Meta Horizons like workplace room, and I don't want to. The interview will be published in a couple of months. So I won't say who it was with, but it was a ed tech startup, and their whole firm or company meets in VR 2 days a week, and I kind of liked it.
Really?
Yeah, I did.
It was kind of what was demoed by Facebook whenever that was.
I think it's so different when you actually do something versus see it demoed. I'd say the avatars aren't great. Like it didn't really probably look like me, but that can all be improved, right? Like this stuff's
Right.
all improving. I do think one of the issues is with the hardware. So you have to keep the headset plugged in basically all the time until you use it. And then the battery life lasts an hour and a half.
Hour and a half.
So, yeah.
So you feel like you got a glimpse of the future with this?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, it seems like it's AR or VR is back in the inevitable category for technology. I was talking about Apple releasing their new headset.
Yeah. It made me think more about ed tech products in VR and in efficacious entertainment. The blog we posted last week, we talked about prisons of reality and the importance of immersiveness in new education products, but the job simulations and different modules and adult learning, I think that's going to be just standard, like much bigger, and it's going to be in VR, and that's just obviously the future.
Well, definitely it's going to be in the flight simulators before it's in more widespread. But I remember actually, now that you mention it, doing a welding demo a couple of years ago in VR. It still feels like it's a cycle or two away. What's the Oculus? What's that thing in your hand?
300, 400.
300? But if you think about it, it's like a third of the price of your phone. if
Yeah,
you're
which
on iPhone.
really isn't a lot, right? Especially if you're like, this is something that businesses can buy for their staff, or
Right.
is a tool for that is a little bit table stakes, especially if people aren't going back to the office. Like if you're like, okay, this is a replacement for an office, and WeWorks are going for like $2,000 a month or however much they are per seat. You're like, okay, like I could see why you would be like, all right, you get your Oculus, you get your phone, you get your laptop, desktop set up.
And your semi-annual retreat.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, interesting. Okay, so maybe it's closer than I thought it was. At least I thought it would be the back half of this decade where we
Well,
kind of really see this.
it made me think more about it, to be honest.
That's it for this week. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Weekly Wrap. Please drop any thoughts or ideas in the comments, and we'll see you next week.